Now, a WFSB Plus original. This is the Capitol Rundown.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for streaming with us, and welcome to the Capitol Rundown. I'm Kara Sundlin. This is the show where we bring you politics from both sides of the aisle that matter to you. We've got Republican contributor Themis Klarides. She's the former House leader. We have Tickey, who is a Democratic strategist, both joining us to talk about the issues of the day. Welcome to us on Zoom this time, guys. I know it's cold out there.
It's way better in here.
Way better in there, yeah. All right, so you guys are all over the place, and so we're having this special edition on Zoom as we get ready we have a big announcement about next week, so stay tuned. Capitol Rundown has a big announcement for the first day of session. But first, I want to get to the issues of the day. If you're watching your phone, you're getting those alerts, you're hearing that there may be a partial government shutdown again. And yet we heard that there was going to be all this bipartisan cooperation and that the president doesn't want it to happen. What do we need to know? What's happening right now as literally right now lawmakers are wrangling? Jimmy, let's start with you.
Sure. So over the last week, you saw that both the House and the Senate passed what we call these regular continuing resolutions to regularly fund the government. And most of those went well to fund the government because there really was not an appetite to have another shutdown. We saw what happened last year. There was a shutdown for 43 days that really impacted people, and there was a major disagreement about we fund and support healthcare in this country, with Democrats wanting to extend those tax subsidies. This time around, we are seeing major disagreements with ICE, of course, and with the killing of Americans in the streets, and Democrats wanting more accountability, wanting some demands with body cameras, with more accountability, with more training for these ICE agents. And we've seen what happened with Secretary Noem and her complete incompetence in running this department. And Democrats do not want to fund ICE and want to make sure that if we move forward in this funding, that there are some measures to be more accountable. And so that is playing its way through the Senate. There was a temporary agreement, but the House is not in session this weekend. The House comes back into session next week. And so because the funding only runs through Saturday evening, you will see a temporary short-term shutdown of some of those efforts. And then when the House comes back in on Monday, you will see then this, particularly to the DHS funding, which oversees ICE and oversees some other important pieces in our country as well, TSA and FEMA, that will then be taken up in both the House and the Senate. You know, we want to be funding FEMA, we want to be having emergency response, we want to be funding TSA, but Democrats do not want to see just blindly funding or increasing funding for ICE when we are seeing just how they have mismanaged so much of this operation and American lives have been lost. And so hopefully we will see a continuation of many of those accounts next week, but it does take some time for the House to come back into session and then for the Senate to have an agreement. And I will point out, even some Republicans are now calling for Secretary Noem to resign or to be impeached.
Okay, Themis Klarides, let's go over to you. What do you think is going to happen? Do you agree we're going to have no problem to fund this? And what say you about ICE and this being a big issue for a lot of Americans who are watching?
Well, I think this is a big issue for a lot of Americans, what's going on with ICE, because people in this country, whether they're Republican or Democrat, they want to be safe and they want both parties to work together to make that happen, right? And so I think, you know, to Jimmy's point about the Democrats are upset with what's happening with ICE and want accountability, I think Republicans want accountability too, right? Because this is what we want. And I will speak as a Connecticut Republican. We want to make sure that everybody that's supposed to be in this country is in this country. The people that are here, that are criminals, that are illegally here, they should leave. And so what's been going on with ICE clearly is an issue because people shouldn't be dying in these situations. They're not getting enough training, these ICE agents. They've limited the training from 5 months to 2 months, which means they're not getting as much de-escalation training. They're not getting as much, active training as they were getting before. So there is a problem. But as far as the shutdown goes, the hard part about being a legislator and voting on budget bills is there's a lot of things in them. And so this DHS bill is not only ICE, it's Border Patrol, it's transportation security, it's other transportation issues, it's FEMA, it's things that we need in this country. And based on the snowstorm we just had and what we see going on around the country, these things are important things. So there was an agreement yesterday to remove that one part, the Department of Homeland Security funding, and vote on the rest. And then one Republican Senator, Lindsey Graham, decided he didn't support the unanimous vote. He wanted something else in regard to something that was important to him. So now they're just going to be debating this and discussing this. And I have confidence they will come to a resolution and just vote on the rest of it. And then the House will come back Monday and they will figure this out. And then they'll have 2 weeks to figure out this Homeland Security funding. But remember, all that big budget debate we had all last spring and summer in Washington, a lot of ICE was already funded. A lot of this stuff was already funded. So this partial shutdown is exactly what it sounds like, partial. There's no reason to panic about worrying about what happened a few months ago will happen again right now.
Right. Where the bottom line, just like we've been saying about the snow, bottom line, there's no snow. We don't have to worry if we just got over that big storm of Winter Storm Benjamin. Bottom line, no one's losing their SNAP benefits again. No one's doing this. There's no major impact on average Americans for this. But I do want to put you on the spot, Themis, a little bit about more. There are Republicans now defecting and some going off the record, ICE agents and whatnot, saying that this was bungled and that clearly with President Trump sending in someone else to handle what's happening in Minneapolis, that even Republicans and the president are agreeing that the shooting of Alex Preddy is a problem.
It is, of course. It's absolutely a problem. I mean, whether you're a Republican or Democrat or unaffiliated, I mean, I don't think Alex Preddy went in there. It was not the first time he had an altercation with ICE. You know, he went in armed, but all those things are his right. And you may say, okay, you're going to get arrested, or we're going to put you, in the police car, or whatever. But you shouldn't expect to die, and that's unacceptable from any party at any time. And as I said earlier, they have lessened the training for ICE agents from 5 months to 2 months. They have softened the requirements for what have they been trying to do? Let's ramp up as many ICE agents as possible so we can deport as many people as possible. Now, again, under President Biden, he just basically had an open door policy and let everybody in here. So now, whether it's President Trump or it was somebody else, this president and this Congress is left to figure out, what do we do here? Mm-hmm. And we've seen a lot of bad things happen with people that are illegally here. Our focus should be on getting the people that are illegally here, who are criminals, out of here. Because what is our job as government? Keep people safe, educate our children, take care of our elderly. There's basic jobs we have and we should always have, regardless of what party we are. So as far as Secretary Noem, I mean, I will just say this. I don't think she was qualified to do this job in the first place. She was a governor and she was a good governor for her state, but this is a whole different, as my mom would say, ball of wax. This is a big deal. And I think, that he may be thinking, he meaning the president, that it might be time for a change sooner than later.
So we might see something next week. Jemmy, I'll let you finish on this before we move to the big news about Capitol Rundown and what's happening next week in our state. What needs to change in Minneapolis? And some saying that even just the fact that it's all happening in Minneapolis is political because there are other cities with more immigration problems.
Right. Well, it all, in part began with the killing of Renee Good, and then we saw what happened with Alex Preddy. I mean, this has seemed to be concentrated in Minnesota. The president obviously doesn't like any former or current political opponent. The governor there was an opponent as he ran for vice president in 2024. But this is about the president and this federal administration really weaponizing their own departments against the American people. ICE has not been helpful to de-escalate situations. They have only made situations worse, escalated situations, created confusion, created fear in the streets, rounding up people, often erroneously, the wrong people. We should address criminals as we have in prior federal administrations, but this is not that. This has been creating fear in the streets, rounding up people, creating angst among protesters, making situations worse. These folks, these ICE staff are not trained. This is not our local and state police that we trust. These are agents that are not well trained, that have escalated situations. And so it really calls into question who is leading these efforts that have been barbaric in our American streets. We need Secretary Noem to resign or to be fired. And if not, there is support building in Congress to impeach her, which is pretty rare that a secretary would be impeached. But we're at that kind of a level that this has been so mismanaged by this president and has created so much much fear and loss of life. And you even are beginning to see some different messages where Secretary Noem is saying, well, she got her orders from the president, but then the president saying he was going to de-escalate. They're sending in different people. So I think we all will believe it when we see it, when we truly see ICE pulled out of Minnesota. We do not need that presence there. We do not need ICE in our streets creating this sort of chaos. And we certainly don't need them in Connecticut either.
Okay, let's move on to our local issues, as next week is a big week. We begin a new session here in Connecticut. It is a shorter session, but the first day will be on Wednesday. And Capitol Rundown will be live at the Capitol. Let's put up the graphic that we made so you all know when to tune in. The Capitol Rundown is live for a special edition, just like we do on election night. We'll be streaming to you live 1 to 3 p.m. Anyone that matters, whether they're running or involved in high-stakes legislation, they will be live with myself, Themis, and Jimmy. Will be coming to you right from the Capitol as the governor is giving his State of the State address. We'll be right there bringing you the conversations live from both sides of the aisle. You can stream this for free on WFSB Plus, on Fire TV, Apple TV, Roku, Google TV. Just find it wherever on your smart TV. So I'm excited about this, guys, and I'm excited to have you there because of your individual deep knowledge from both sides of the aisle. So let's start with you, Themis. What do we expect the next big issues to be as we enter this session?
Well, as you said, this is the short session, which means it's only 3 months, but we always seem to jam a lot of things into those 3 months. I think the theme for this session will be, whereas Gwyneth Paltrow was a conscious uncoupling, this is going to be a decoupling. This is going to be reacting and acting in regards to what the federal government has done. So, for example, during the Big Beautiful Bill last year, we saw exemptions on tips and on overtime. So the governor is interested in removing that. So he wants to decouple from the federal government in regards to that. In regards to healthcare, where they want to see decouple from the federal government in regards to vaccination schedules. And the question will be, because right now they can do what they want in regards to that, but do they put it in statute? Do they make it an actual law in writing, so it can't change unless somebody else changes it? I think we're going to see a lot of things in regards, there's going to be a lot of bills in regards to homeschooling. Everything from you have to register annually to you have to take a test annually. I think you're going to see everything from, and everything in between, because as we've talked about on the show and a lot of other venues, we are very, 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 I will use 3 varies, loosey-goosey in regards to homeschooling. And again, I support people who would like to homeschool, but I think we also have a responsibility as a state government to keep an eye on what they're doing and what their progress is, and clearly their safety, based on the experiences we've seen in Waterbury and New Britain. We're also going to see a lot of children's protection bills. We talked about Attorney General Tong last week and the POP bill about targeting kids and packaging that's fun and cute for kids and gets their attention, that we want to make sure doesn't happen anymore, but that we're also focusing on their social media. So the governor and the attorney general have proposed a bill that addresses the logarithms. And that's about all I can tell you about logarithms, is that they are logarithms. But I know that they focus on kids, and they make the things that kids are interested in more attractive.
Right.
So some of the proposals are, let's shut down their ability to be on social media from 9 at night to 8 in the morning without parental control. So there'll be a lot of proposals in regards to all of those subjects, but those are some of the top.
Okay, so we've got pot, making sure it's not at your gas station, homeschooling. Is it an off-ramp for people who are abusing their kids, and how do we control that? And then, of course, with the vaccination schedule here in Connecticut, do we codify something that it's different than what the federal government, and more? Jimmy, what do you see as the big issues? You agree with Themis? You want to add any here, as we're going to be covering it live on Wednesday?
Yes, look forward to Wednesday. What I'm hearing is a couple of different things. As Themis said, definitely needing to track the cuts that have been made by the federal government and to make sure that in Connecticut we're representing our individuals and families and our Connecticut values. We saw this with the Affordable Care Act when people were getting double and tripling of their bills. Connecticut activated some emergency dollars to help some individuals throughout the state make sure that they bend just some of those costs down. So I think you'll see some efforts around healthcare, around perhaps some funding to make sure that we can have the wherewithal at some state departments to make sure that we are able to move on programs that the federal government might be cutting, including education, maybe taking a look at that educational cost sharing. You know, education is such an increasing cost of a town and city's budget. So making sure those formulas are fair and taking a look at some of the education funding, as was mentioned, taking a look at DCF and maybe for families or individuals that have multiple touch points with DCF, what more can be done there with coordination and kind of strengthening those connections to make sure that no one slips through the cracks that we saw, unfortunately, several times last year in Connecticut, to make sure that we are really having a holistic approach. If someone has interactions with DCF, there can be proper follow-up, especially if that individual is homeschooled. And I'm also hearing from some Democratic leaders an interest in continuing to strengthen Connecticut's workforce development. You know, we've got great companies here. We do have manufacturing. It might look a little different than our parents and our grandparents' manufacturing floors, but continuing to enhance that workforce pipeline and that manufacturing pipeline in Connecticut.
Okay, interesting. So we will be there. I just want to describe what this is going to be like. Make sure maybe set a save the date on your phone. We'll be sending push alerts on your phone. You'll be able to stream this on the app or watch on WFSB Plus. But the Capitol Rundown will be Wednesday, February 4th. We will be live from 1 to 3 right after the governor gives his State of the State address. You can watch that on Eyewitness News at noon. Then we'll be breaking down all of the big issues as we see them and as people are speaking out about them. You'll hear live from the newsmakers and the change makers right in our conversation. Of course, Jimmy and Themis will be there to ask questions and to bring up points that matter from both sides of the aisle. Because here in Connecticut, we are trying to make some bipartisan moments, right, guys? This is one of the purposes of this show. Let's come together and let's talk about it.
Right. I mean, we're trying to make, because you know what? And both of us would get beaten up for saying this, but both sides have good ideas. But every idea isn't something we're going to agree on. But it's about finding out what we agree on, because you get elected to do what's best for your constituents. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
You know, so whosever idea that is, it's their idea.
Okay. And you know what's a good idea, guys? No snow this weekend. So if you have missed all the updates from Eyewitness News at noon and all the special Facebook Lives, that storm decided to hightail it out of here. It took the yellow track. No snow for Connecticut. If you're traveling down through the Carolinas or maybe even D.C., well, that you're going to have to look at. But no snow. So, Jimmy, your book is coming out. It has come out, Organizing to Win. You've got your book launch on Sunday in Shelton, so you don't need to cancel your events or any events on Sunday. Themis, I know you're on the other side of the aisle, but this is nonpartisan, right? This is telling people to get involved.
I know. I don't have the book. Kurt Every has the book, but I don't have the book. I could have held it up.
Get in the book. Themis is in the book. It's nonpartisan. It's about getting involved and making a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so interesting because I did start reading it. You have a to-do list. You even show how to figure out like how many votes you need to win. Themis, as someone who has done this for most of your adult life, is it so important that we get new voices involved? And I'll say even especially more females?
We don't have anywhere near enough females involved in politics, and there's a lot of reasons why, but it's incumbent upon females that are in politics to get other women in and explain to them why they can do it, right? But it's always important to have new voices. I mean, I don't believe because somebody's in office for 20 years, they shouldn't still be there, because they still have good ideas. But you want new ideas, you want older ideas, you want people to, back to what we talked about. It's about discussing them, putting them all out there, and figuring out what do we believe in and what do we think, what do we think is best for our town or our city or our state. And so that takes everybody's idea.
Yeah, okay. And Jimmy, I think a lot of people, I'll just let you talk about it just for 1 second, because if you are interested in getting involved at any level, elected or just serving on a local board or local nonprofit, those are great ways to get involved. But a lot of people think there's no way I can get involved. I don't have enough money. It's going to take so much money to campaign. Is money still a really big issue for people to get involved?
I think when you're looking at local and state office, not so much. When you are looking at getting involved locally, you really don't need a lot of money. You're not running for president. You're not running for the United States Senate. It's amazing what you can do with a very small budget, with a shoestring budget and a lot of volunteers to make it happen locally, to get involved in a local board or commission, or maybe even to run for mayor. And even with state office in Connecticut, we have the Clean Elections program where we ask people for $5 contributions. And once you get enough $5 contributions, it activates a grant. So in Connecticut, we really have very strong financial rules around our campaigns that really lower the barriers to entry in politics. And my book is all about doing that, getting more people to be interested. You know, politics only works if people participate in it. So for people that maybe feel like an outsider to politics, to think that they don't belong, that's exactly who we need to be volunteering, to be active in the space, to advocate for what they believe in, maybe to get involved in a campaign, to help manage a campaign, and ultimately to think about running for office. And so it was important for me to make the book really nonpartisan, because it's not about any one candidate. Candidates come and go, but organizing is always there. The relationships you make with people in your community and your state are always there, and you can build upon them. And so I'm really excited for the book to now finally be out there for people to get. And I hope that it makes a difference, and I hope that people learn about how government works and then how they can play a role in making democracy work.
It says Jimmy Tickey's Organizing to Win. It's a timely, practical, and empowering guide for anyone who wants to make a real difference in their community. Themis, I'll let you just end it. Like, anything you want to say about money in politics, or you agree we can all get involved and not feel too intimidated?
Jimmy's right about the fact that, you know, local races are completely different than statewide races and national races. But, you know, I've told people time after time, you will get help raising money if you show that you're going to work your butt off, that you really care. There's issues that you care about. You have ideas, and you will get people excited to be involved, and they will help you raise that money. But the money raising thing is absolutely not as big of a deal on the local level, and that's where you really should start and get your feet wet and learn how to run campaigns, get to know people, go to different events. You know, go to the fire department's pancake breakfast, go to the pasta dinners. I mean, those are where you really kind of get involved in your community, and you learn about what the needs are, and, you know, who you can get out there to be on your side.
All right, we've got the insiders here. We've talked about the partial government shutdown. Not going to be a big deal, just like there's no snow. The next big thing is the Capitol Rundown will be live to bring you everything from both sides of the aisle on Wednesday. We'll be out there streaming on WFSB Plus from 1 to 4. I'll be field anchoring our coverage at noon and throughout the evening as well with our insiders, Jimmy and Themis. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
All right,
see
Jimmy.
you on Wednesday.
Yeah, I'll see you on Wednesday. Jimmy, good luck on Sunday. I'll be there. All right, guys. And stay tuned, because Eyewitness News will continue coming up at 4 o'clock here on WFSB Plus. But for now, Great Day Connecticut is what's up next, and that starts at 3 o'clock. You can follow me at Kara Sundlin on all my social media. Follow our insiders while you're at it, too. Have a great day.